Hello YouTube, you know me, it's Mr. Lala Bubba. I am here with a new series that I like to call Competitive Bios, and what it basically is me explaining, well, the competitive bios of certain Pokemon, and in a broad sense, showing you guys how to use them competitively, what their strengths and weaknesses are as a whole, like whether or not certain aspects of them are good or bad compared to other Pokemon in their tier. And I guess just to help you come up with more creative ways to use certain Pokemon, and maybe Pokemon that you find were pointless before, you have a point for them now in your teams and stuff like that. And I'm going to be doing one Pokemon per episode. The one that I've chosen for this one is Heracross. And I'm going to be explaining to you in this episode, Heracross, what is good and bad about its stats, its move pool, its abilities, its typing, the counters against it, and sort of an overall grade. Each of these aspects I'm going to give a letter grade from A to F. So starting out, just a basic explanation of Heracross. Heracross is a bug and fighting type, and it's currently in the UU, which stands for underused tier. That is going by Smogon. There are many different places where you'll find different tiering. Well, you'll find different variations in the tiering, but according to Smogon, it is in UU, and that is of course for now. Also, tiers can change based on new moves that Pokemon get or how the metagame's playing out. So starting out with Heracross's stats. Heracross, I'm going to give an A- in stats. That's because Heracross has a base 125 attack. It's got a really great attack stat for its tier, of course. It is a great attack stat, a great base attack stat to start out with, and it's extremely a physical attacker. The reason why I don't give it an A or above is actually because of its not so great speed. It's not bad. It's not a bad speed stat. It is a passable speed stat, but for being something that would usually be used as a sweeper, as a physical sweeper, it doesn't exactly have the best speed stat. I think it's a base 85. Actually, yeah, base 85 speed stat, which compared to other Pokemon in its tier, it's just not the best. But again, overall, I would give Heracross an A- when it comes to stats. As far as the move pool goes for Heracross, I would have to give this one a very, very solid A. It has great stab moves like Mega Horn and Close Combat, specifically Mega Horn and Close Combat. Being a bug and a fighting type, those two moves are essential. Being physical, they have very high base power, and not always a he, they get same type attack bonus on them. And as well, it has the option of Earthquake or Stone Edge, which is great type coverage against fire types, which it is affected by, or super affected by, and it is 4 times weak to flying, but that can be countered by Stone Edge as well. So this move pool is just very diverse, and it's a great move pool. Those are all physical attacks that can do a lot of damage on a Heracross. Abilities, it has 3, of course, so I'm going to try to take all 3 into account when giving the overall grade of the abilities. I'm going to give Heracross an A-. That would be because 2 of its abilities are actually very good, Moxie and Guts. What Moxie does, if you didn't know, is it raises the attack stat of the Pokemon once it KOs an opponent. So being something that would typically be used as a sweeper, Moxie is a great thing. Once you get the ball rolling, it never stops. You get higher and higher attack as you knock out more Pokemon. And Guts, it actually raises the amount of damage you do. Well, it raises your attack when you have a status condition. So when you have something like maybe a Toxic Orb or a Flame Orb to give it a status condition, it will have even higher attack and be able to sweep even better. And say that someone tries to counter a Heracross by burning it, which lowers the attack, it would actually be raised by Guts, so it would not be affected by that. Swarm, however, is kind of the downside of its abilities. Swarm is not really a very useful ability in the metagame, and that's why it has good stats, but the option of Swarm is not the greatest. So of course you're not going to be picking all 3, but as an overall grade, I'd give its ability pool an A-. Of course, you're again only going to be having 1 per Pokemon, and I doubt that you'd use Swarm because it's not very useful. But as an overall, I'd give I'd give its abilities an A minus. Typing is probably the big downfall of Heracross. I'm going to give it a B when it comes to typing, because it's a very odd typing, bug and flying. Or bug and fighting, what am I talking about? Bug and fighting, of course. It's a very odd typing. It actually gives it a 4 times weakness to flying, which cripples it very badly in UU tier. There are great flying types like Zapdos in UU, so it can really be, it can just be messed up by the flying types in this tier, and it gets outsped by a lot of the fire types that it's also weak to. There are um, some pretty fast fire types in UU like Darmanitan and Arcanine. So not being able to outspeed those fire types to use moves like Earthquake and Stone Edge, in its tier, having that weakness to fire and that weakness to flying really, really cripples it. But on the bright side, it has a natural coverage to psychic types. It doesn't have to worry as much about psychic types due to the fact that it gets strong bug type moves like Megahorn that also do same type attack bonus. When it comes to counters, how I'm going to give Pokemon grades in this series is the least amount or the least potent counters that this Pokemon has, it will get a higher grade in counters. However, if it has more counters or those counters cripple it especially, or it has a high amount of crippling counters, it will get a lower grade in counters. Heracross is sort of at the crossroads. I gave it a B+, because Pokemon like Gligar really, really cripple this thing. It can't really do much with its stab moves. Those Pokemon can really wall those hits, and it can deal it right back. It's a flying type in part, so it could really do some damage to Heracross, and Zapdos as well can outspeed it before getting hit with that Stone Edge. However, Zapdos is still crippled by Stone Edge if it hits, and Will-O-Wisp, which you would see on something also that would try to wall a Heracross like a Cofagrigus or a Dusclops. Will-O-Wisp, if you have Guts, that can take care of that problem, but if you don't have Guts, it's also crippling, so it's kind of a give or take when it comes to Will-O-Wisp and when it comes to which ability you choose. So, because, you know, having that attack boost from Moxie is great, but if you get burned, it's sort of rolling the dice, and that's why the counters, I'm giving it a B+. It does have some decently potent counters, but they don't really cripple it. Heracross has a way to counter all of its counters, which is a very strange thing to say. Now, on to the overall grade, and this is the part where I take all of the information on each Pokemon and just kind of combine it together and give an overall grade of how useful or how good it is. Of course, this is in retrospect to its in perspective, I should say, to its tier, to what other Pokemon you're typically going to be competing against when you use this Pokemon. And for Heracross being in UU, I'm going to give it an overall of an A-. It has a great move pool, and it has pretty good stats as well. Its typing is less than stellar. Its counters also are sort of a downside, but its abilities are good. I mean, you can get Moxie, you can get Guts, you can do something like a physically sweeping Moxie. It's got great physical attacks to sweep with and cover weaknesses, but it does have those counters that can really go and block its sweeping, and its typing is very, very awkward when you're when you're in UU. So yeah, that's why I gave it not a perfect grade, but still a pretty good grade. I would say this is a very usable Pokemon. It's, in my opinion, one of the better ones in UU. It's a very good Pokemon to use. It's very useful. It doesn't have much diversity, I would say. It doesn't have much diversity as to usefulness. You can do things like Toxic Orb or Flame Orb and sweep with it, or you can, I guess, use a Moxie and sweep with it. There's not much you can do outside of sweeping. It does have some decent defenses that you can put to use, but they're not really they don't stand out as much as its really, really high attack stat. If you don't put that attack stat to use, it's really a waste of a very, 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 very good attack stat for a UU Pokemon. That's going to be it for my first bio. Thank you for watching this, guys, and again, this is all for your education, or for your usefulness. So if you have a suggestion as to what Pokemon I should use next, go ahead and leave it in the comments. or leave it in the comments, or make a suggestion as to what Pokemon you want to see, how it can be used competitively, and all that kind of stuff. And leave a like, rating, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of these. A lot of work went into it, so leave some support and leave some feedback too for things that could be improved for the next bio. This is my first one, of course, so it's not going to be perfect, but again, it's here for your usefulness, so use it if you want to. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you around.